Hello and welcome back to my garden. Today I'm going to be digging up and dividing this red hot poker. This red hot poker this year was incredible. It put out some very thick stems and got to about that tall with its flowers. It was absolutely beautiful. Unfortunately, it's a little too big for this space because right behind it, kind of squished, is a hydrangea. You could probably barely see it there. So this red hot poker I'm going to take out, I'm going to dig up and take out. And I'm not sure if I'm going to replant another one here or elsewhere in this front garden, or if I'll just keep all the cuttings together in the greenhouse for the winter. Let's start by digging this up. Now, according to the interwebs, the best time to do this is technically the springtime, when the new shoots are coming up. But I'm going to dig it up and I'm going to pull it up now because it's gotten a little too large. And I've done this before where I've pulled the plant out of the ground during the fall, divided it, and either replanted some of it back into the ground and or kept some in the greenhouse over the winter time for ready to be planted out in the following spring. Now I can get away with this because I'm in growing zone 8B and our winters are generally very mild. So as long as the plant, I believe, has time to get its roots into the ground, sort of settled in, then the rest of it should be okay, I think. Possibly. If you live in a warm growing zone and you've done this kind of thing before, let me know in the comments below. If you think I'm completely nuts, please leave those comments below. In the meantime, let's get to working on this guy here. I think what I'm going to try first is using a digging fork. In case you didn't know, I really didn't know until recently, actually. A digging fork is like a pitchfork, except it has bigger, stronger, thicker tines, versus, let's say, a compost fork or a hay fork, which has longer, thinner tines. Yeah. There we go. That's big. That's very big. Let's take this back over to the greenhouse and see what we can do about dividing it. Before we start dividing that thing, I just wanted to kind of point out this hydrangea here. I don't know the variety. The name eludes me. I might have written down someplace. But you could see sort of this front face is very empty. There's not a lot of leaves. All the growth was going out the back, and that's because you saw that red hot poker was pushing up against this guy. And hopefully, I already see a little small bud. So I think next year it will flush back out into the front, hopefully, and it'll look lovely. And I think whatever I plant here in the front will be something significantly smaller so as not to bully this hydrangea. Okay, so one very large red hot poker. And I can't remember if I had planted it last year or the year before. It must have been the year before, or the year before that even. I'd have to probably go back and look at photos and or YouTube. Either way, this thing is massive. The largest red hot poker I have ever grown. If there's a downside to red hot pokers, this would be it, is the fact that it would just keep growing and growing and growing and become a huge mass. I don't think that as it gets older, it flowers less, but if I'm wrong on that, let me know in the comments below. Either way, we're gonna see about what we can do here, because I think there's going to be a lot of plants here. So for instance, just teasing at the edge of this, I have one. So hopefully you guys can see, here's one, and you can see it's got all of the fixings here for a plant. Hopefully you guys can see this. I do apologize for the light. Here we go. So here we go with one. So we've got a good, I don't know, crown, what do you call that, base to the plant, and lots of good roots. So that's one. And I'm going to say this clump right here is going to be number 2. So again, good roots, and we got shoots. The other thing I'm going to do to help these plants along, or to minimize transplant shock, is I'm going to cut some of the top growth back. There you go. So now there's just this amount. Now, as with the others that I just pulled up, and this one too, I'm going to pot these up, and then they'll stay in the greenhouse over the winter because they're so small and young and tender. To transplant this into the ground at this point, maybe risking losing it. I think what I'm going to do is chop back a lot of this green growth so it's easier to handle and easier to see how many divisions I can get out of this plant. So now maybe you can get a better idea here of the size of this beast and how dense it is. I don't know where to go from here. What I may wind up doing is taking a shovel and dividing it right down the middle and seeing what happens. Oh, let's see how thick this is. So this piece here, I don't know if you guys will be able to see this, is I think good because we have some leaves and we have roots. Very important. If you've never divided red hot pokers or grown red hot pokers, easy plant, really hardy, and as brutal as it is as it looks as I'm being to the plant right now, for the most part, I believe most of these divisions will retake and regrow. Now this clump right here only has a few roots, but that's all it needs. And these whitish leaves, because they were in the center of the plant, they'll start to green up. And really after that initial division, all I'm just doing is pulling it apart. And again, you can see lots of roots. This is a good clump. Here's a tiny one, but we have some, I don't know if this is a rhizome, crown, whatever, and we do have some roots. So again, I will just cut the top leaf back, drop it into the bucket, and hopefully it regrows into a nice lovely plant. This one actually looks pretty good. I mean, that was just half that we did. Here's the other half, quite large. But you can see how some of these pieces just break off quite easily. Now this one, I don't know if you guys will be able to see this, but looks like we cut part of the, I don't know what you'd call this, the rhizome, the crown, whatever. I don't know if this one will take, but we have good roots and we have some leaves. So I'm just going to cut it back and I'll pot it up and we'll see. Oh boy, I may have to hit this with the shovel again. There we go. All right, this is new growth coming up right here. New leaves pushing up. So this one is obviously good. And when I plant it, these will get partially covered. And if I'm not mistaken, right here is yet even more new growth coming up. So now that one plant is divided into, I don't know how many. So let's do a quick count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 16, 25, 34, 38, and 39. And it looks like we're ending on an even number, 40. So out of one plant, it looks like I have 40 different plants. If I had divided the plant into quarters, leaving larger clumps, I would probably replant one of those larger clumps or all of those larger clumps back into the ground, because even with a hard freeze or frost, chances are the interior of the plant would be safer and survive and thrive versus the exterior. But because I divided it this way, each of these will be getting potted up and then kept in the greenhouse over the winter, so their roots grow out and they get to harden up a little bit. They won't do much growing in the greenhouse. They also won't suffer from any cold or damp. They'll be kept relatively moistish and they'll be warmer in the greenhouse. And then next spring, I have to find a home for 40. If 40 plants do survive until next spring, I have to find a home for 40 plants. I have a neighbor that may want a dozen, maybe. Doubtful it should take a dozen. That's a lot of plants out of one. Now I have other red hot pokers around the garden. I have a couple in the rose garden and a few over in the flower garden, and all those were grown from one plant. I believe I took one plant with me from New York, and when it got to an appropriate size after being here for a year or two, I then divided it into further plants and so on. So I don't know if I'll be keeping all of these. Maybe. So if you guys have any ideas what to do with 40 red hot pokers, please leave those comments below. And most assuredly, next year I'll be digging up more, because I have some in the garden that will at that point be large enough to divide again. Don't ask me what variety this is. Might be something like Red Torch. Don't know off the top of my head. I think I only ever bought two. One was Lucky Girl or something. It's a white and green variety. And the This one is the orange-red one, so it might be something like Red Torch or something. I honestly don't know. I've lost the name a long time ago. So if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Click that. Yes, I'm telling them. So if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Click that bell icon to be notified when I do post a new video. This way you can follow along with my gardening antics, see what I'm up to tomorrow, which I actually have no idea what I'm up to tomorrow. And tomorrow might be day 10 or 11 of my, I think it's day 10, of my 30-day Blitz challenge. So if you look at the camera, you gotta look at the camera, look at the camera, look at the, there you go, look at the no, she's terrible, never work with animals. But she would much appreciate it if you did subscribe. And if you'd be so kind, please check out all the links below. That's going to wrap it up for today. I'm not going to bore you with potting up those guys, but I will catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.